I want you to think about the last time you stayed late to fix something that wasn't even your problem. The last time you said yes when you were already buried. The last time you covered for someone, trained someone, or quietly cleaned up a mess that nobody even thanked you for. Now I want you to think about the last time any of that got you closer to where you actually want to be. If there's a gap between those two things, between how much you give and how far you've moved, this video is going to explain exactly why that gap exists. And the answer is going to make you uncomfortable, because it's not what most people think. Stay with me, because what I'm about to show you changes how you see every job you'll ever have. There's a type of person inside almost every workplace. They show up early, they learn everything, they never complain, and they become the person everyone relies on for the hard stuff, the messy stuff, the stuff no one else wants to touch. Their managers love them, their teammates depend on them, and quietly, without anyone planning it, they stop moving forward. Not because they stop performing, but because they never stop performing. Here's the strange thing about that sentence, and I want you to sit with it for a second. What if the very habits that make you exceptional at your current job are the exact habits preventing you from ever leaving it? I know that sounds backwards, but by the time we get to the middle of this video, you're going to see it clearly, and you're going to think of at least one person in your life who is living this right now. This pattern has a name. I call it the loyalty tax, and it works like this. Every time you go above what your job requires, you're making a deposit into a kind of invisible account. You're thinking, eventually, this adds up. Eventually, someone notices. Eventually, it pays off. But here's what no one tells you about that account. Your organization isn't keeping score the way you think. They're not tracking your deposits as evidence that you deserve more. They're tracking them as proof that you're fine right where you are. Because in the logic of most organizations, a problem raises a flag. A complaint creates urgency. But a person who quietly handles everything, they create something else entirely. They create comfort, and comfort inside an organization is the enemy of movement. Think about it from the other side of the table for a moment. If you manage a team and one person is handling 3 people's worth of work without asking for anything, what's your actual incentive to change that arrangement? There isn't one, not unless something forces your hand. But here's the part that most people never figure out, and it explains everything that comes after it. Inside every organization, there are 2 completely separate tracks running at the same time. Most people only know about one of them. The first track is the one you can see. It's your job description, your performance review, your deliverables. It's the track that rewards results. Hit your numbers, get good feedback, earn a raise, maybe. The second track is invisible. It doesn't show up in any company handbook. Nobody explains it to you during onboarding. But it's the track where all promotion decisions actually happen. And here's the thing about that second track. Performance data from the first track barely matters on it. What matters on the second track is something much harder to measure and much easier to ignore until it's too late. It's narrative. Not who does the best work, but who people think of when a role opens up. Whose name surfaces when 2 decision makers are standing in a hallway with a problem to solve and 60 days to solve it. That conversation doesn't happen in performance review cycles. There's no rubric, no formal process. It happens fast, it happens informally, and it runs almost entirely on impressions. And if you've spent your whole career on the first track, building a perfect record of results that nobody 2 levels above you has ever heard about, your name will not come up on the second one. Here's what that actually costs you, and the number is going to stick with you. Let's say you're in a role that pays $65,000 a year. The role above yours pays $90,000. If you spend 3 years waiting to be noticed instead of actively positioning yourself, that's not just a missed promotion. That's $75,000 you didn't earn, compounded across your career, with raises and retirement contributions attached to that higher salary. And that's the conservative version. The real cost isn't just financial, it's the narrowing. Because here's what happens. The longer you stay excellent at one specific thing, your organization starts to define you by that thing. Not as a person with range and potential, as a function. You become the one who handles that. And once that label is on you, it's remarkably hard to remove. Not because people are cruel, because humans are pattern-based. We see what we expect to see. And if everyone around you expects to see you in the same role, doing the same thing, they will keep seeing it even when it stops being true. There's only one reliable way out, and most people discover it too late, or not at all. Let me give you the mental shift first, before we get to the tactics. Your job is not to be the best at your current role. Your job is to make your current role easy to hand off, so the organization can afford to move you. That single change in perspective rewires how you spend your time, how you talk about your work, and how visible you become to the people who actually control your future. Now, here's what that looks like in practice. 4 moves, each one specific. Move 1, build the exit door for your own role. Document what you know, write it down, teach it to someone else. If you're the only person who knows how something works, you're not an asset, you're a bottleneck with a title. Make yourself replaceable at this level, so you become promotable to the next one. Move 2, do 20% of a job you don't have yet. Not when you're given permission, now. Volunteer for projects that touch strategy. Sit in on conversations outside your lane. Ask to join the planning meeting, even if you just listen. You are building a visible record of operating above your current level, and that record is the entire basis for the narrative that gets told about you. Move 3, control the story of your own work. After every significant project, send a short update to your manager, not a status report, a framing. Here's what we delivered, here's what it meant for the business, and here's what I'm taking from it. 3 sentences. Once a week if you can. You are not bragging, you are making sure your work gets interpreted correctly instead of getting buried under the next thing on someone's list. Move 4, get known outside your immediate team. The person who controls your promotion often isn't your direct manager. It's someone above them or adjacent to them who forms an impression of you from small informal interactions over time. Attend the cross-departmental meeting. Introduce yourself at the company event. Offer to help on something outside your function. These aren't networking tactics, they're insurance against being invisible when your name needs to come up. Now, none of that works until you do something most high performers resist doing entirely. You have to make your ambitions known, out loud, to the right people, not as an ultimatum, not as a complaint, as a simple, professional, unmistakable statement of intent. Something like, I'm building toward a leadership role here. What would you need to see from me in the next 6 months to make that happen? That sentence does 3 things at once. It signals that you have a direction. It invites your manager into a real conversation instead of leaving everything implied. And it creates a clock which changes your situation from comfortable to urgent on their end. Most high performers never say anything like this. They assume their work speaks for itself. And it does, but it speaks the wrong language. It says, keep me here, not move me forward. The shift from assumption to declaration is the single fastest way to unstick a career that has been quietly, politely going nowhere. Here's the thing about what comes next that surprises almost everyone who tries it. Sometimes you have this conversation, you make your work visible, you build the relationships, you do everything right, and the organization still doesn't move. Not because you did anything wrong, but because some organizations aren't built to promote from within, no matter what you do. The ceiling isn't above you, it's built into the walls. And if you discover that after 6 months of applying everything in this video, that information is not a failure, it is extremely valuable data. Because now you know exactly where to take your skills next. The people who use this moment well don't leave with bitterness, they leave with evidence, a clear track record, a documented set of wins, and a story they can tell about why they're ready. And that story opens doors in 30 days that years of silent loyalty never could. Here's what I want you to walk away with. Hard work is not the problem. Hard work is necessary, but hard work pointed entirely inward, at your current role, at being reliable, at keeping everything running smoothly. That is not a career strategy. That is a holding pattern. The people who move are not always the best performers in the room. They are the ones who understand that organizations respond to signals, not records. And they have learned to send the right signals to the right people at the right time. You already have the work ethic. You already have the skills. The only thing most people are missing is the awareness that the game they've been playing isn't the one that leads where they want to go. If this landed for you, share it with one person today, not later. Someone who's been giving everything to a job that hasn't been keeping up its end of the deal. And drop a comment below with this. What's one thing you've been waiting to say out loud at work that you haven't said yet? I'll see you in the next one.